Okay, this is an update on my Bluetti 200 version 2. On previous videos, if you were watching there, I was testing my lithium batteries for charging up the Bluetti via this particular unit, the Charger 1. I even used the PV solar input to see what I could do and not do. With the solar input, I had to keep the source under 20 amps, otherwise it won't work. However, using the Bluetti Charger 1, I didn't have to worry about that because it took care of it. It was good for 60 amps, and it took whatever it needed. So at 12 volts, I got maybe about 100 watts. At 24, I got a little bit over 200 or more, I think it was. I can't remember the figures. So if I had a 48 volt lithium battery pack, I would be very close to the 50 and getting almost a kilowatt of charging. So it works. However, I came across one little problem. And let me see where it is. Okay, when I was doing the tests, I was using this cable, which is about 20 feet. I noticed this was getting hot. And I also was using the cable that came with this. And it's number 16, I believe. I think I verified it. Number 16. I would never have gone that small. 14 would be the lowest I would ever go for something under 20 amps. So that was out. So I have to fix at least two things. And the reason why, because this unit will shut off at 11 volts DC. On a lithium, if it drops down to 11 volts, you still got 10-15% of the battery. You can keep on charging. So to eliminate that, the first thing I did, I got this cable, and it's number 10. Yeah, there you go, number 10. However, the number 10 will not fit in here. At least, excuse me, with these ferrules. Maybe if I didn't use a ferrule, I might be able to get it in. I'll have to take a look. Okay. And I think this is number 14. I would have preferred a 12. It looks like my cat wants some attention there. So I got some number 6 cable. I got to make the ends here. I'm going to use this 60 amp breaker. And I got 3 feet. I think this was 18 inches, right? And I got 3 feet of number 6. I'm going to use a fuse. I love these fuses. They're good. Right now there's 125 amp in there, but I got a box of 60 amp units. So when I put this all together, anyways, so I pretty well got everything to accomplish this. This I will save for the truck. And this other setup will be when I need to charge it from a lithium battery. I got a bunch of those, so I might as well use it. Now, this has raised a question. People are saying, well, can't you not then use this in an RV? And I kind of thought about it. It could be done. However, there's a couple of things you have to do. First of all, you would need to get a 30 amp dongle to use that. And you're definitely going to need batteries to charge it. But there's a limit. I believe with a generator, I probably can get the 1800 watts charging. With a 20 amp circuit, probably in that range. But if you have a 30 amp service, why not use the 30 amp service when you to charge up the batteries? So the Apex 300 will be better for that purpose. But you're still going to need additional information. I'm going to give you what's needed. Okay, I need something to compare with. Let's assume that I'm thinking of replacing the system. I know in the spring I'm doing a renovation in that whole section of the trailer, so it's going to be repositioned. But let's assume, and I want to use a Bluetti, either the 200 or the Apex 300, depending, but with the same capacity. In other words, I don't want to lose no features that I have here. Can it be done? And if it can, what would I need to do? So that's the plan. So let's assume that's what I'm doing, even though that's not my plan. I definitely would not, for myself, use the 200 because it's going to be for something else. But what if I wanted to do it, and then what device would I use? Which model? Okay, let's see what we can do. Okay, the first thing we need to determine is what is the amp hour of the battery. The Bluetti Elite 200 is 54 amp hour, 48 volt battery. The Apex 300 is also only 54 amp hour. So that's, if you were comparing this to a 12 volt system, you will basically have 200 amps. In my RV, I have it for a minimum of 500 amps and set up to go as high as 1200 amps if I wanted to, but I figure 800 was a perfect balance. So basically, most of the time I'm running 500 and 600, and I can throw in and bring it up to 800 or more. So that means I have to do one thing here. I need to add another 400 amps. With the Bluetti 200 version 2, it's not designed the same way as the Apex 300 for expansion. Yes, I could put a dongle, get 20 amps at best, but I'm hooked up to a 30 amp service. I'm limited by charging. The only way I can charge this is an AC outlet, like a generator, or 15 amp plug or 20 amp plug connection, or even a 30 amp, and solar. One could play with it so that you're simulating solar if you don't have solar, and simulating a Charger 1. It does require a bit of playing, but I just feel that it's unnecessary trouble to go that route. So if you're going to want to do something like this, you definitely want to get the Apex 300, more suitable. And I'm kind of comparing here a 12 volt system versus a 48. So if you have lots of 12 volt batteries, you can either put them in series and get the 4800 and expand it that way, and you could get your 400, 500 amps or 600 amps, whatever you want, just by setting up series and parallel with your batteries if you happen to have a whole bunch, or you've got a couple of 48 battery units. Basically, you would have to do the same thing with the Apex. And from what I gather, with the prices of batteries now, it may be cheaper than buying the Bluetti expansion. And I have to look at the specs, but I'm wondering if it's 5400 amps. So you have to take that into consideration. Okay, with the Apex 300. Both the 200 and the 300, think of it as being the Turbo GX, like the Victron. In other words, the brains. It controls things, the charging, the discharging, UPS function, stuff like that. The advantage of the Apex 300 is that it has more ports. It has the standard 15 amps, 20 amps, 30 amps, and 50 amps, and also you have the option of 240. So if you have one of those bigger trailers where they have 50 amp service, that would take care of it. It's just a matter of hooking things up correctly. As I mentioned before, to expand this, to get what you will need, like in my scenario, I would need at least 2 expansion packs to get what I basically have. And the 300S, I believe, is around 64 amp hours, so that's like 250 amp in comparison to a 12 volt. And the 300K, I believe it's something 54, so about 200 amps. So with this unit and 2 expansion, you have 600 amps when you compare it to a 12 volt system. That would be the minimum. There would be times I could use a third one. Again, it has a lot to do with how long you're off grid. You know, if you're talking a long weekend trip, yeah, you can probably get away with 2. If you don't use air conditioning, yeah, you can get away even more. In fact, if all you're going to use this is for the basics, in other words, everything that's propane, you can still you're going to use propane, and you're just basically going to use it to charge your devices. Oops, let me stop that. I got someone in the back. Okay. We'll turn the other radio down. Anyways, if you're going on a weekend and whatever propane device you have, your hot water, your stove, your furnace, stuff like that, you're going to still use propane? Yeah. You can use this probably alone. It'll be enough maybe to fire up your air conditioning for a short period of time, or at least run the fan, not have the conditioning going, but just the fan is to cool off the evening before bedtime. Yeah, I want to have an espresso coffee. Yeah, great, no problem. You know, anything, microwave, no problem. As long as it's something that, you know, you're only using for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but when you start using it for 20 minutes or longer, then yeah, you need an expansion battery. There's no question about it. Otherwise, you're spending your camping trip worrying about running out of power. It's going to take away from the enjoyment of your activity. So if you want to get rid of that, you probably need a second pack or an option to charge this up within a reasonable period of time, and they're pretty good. The longer your trip is off-grid, then the more options you need. Like for me, for the amount, you know, can't spend 2 weeks, so that's why I have a generator. I find solar has not been very good because we're usually parked in the trees and, you know, away from the sun. You might get a couple of hours of sun and that's about it. So, again, you know, if I had to do this, this is the way I would have gone. The Apex 300 and 3 of those units. Then I would be a happy camper. And any shortfall or shortages, I could take care of with a generator if I had to. And maybe even solar if I happen to be in a good spot. So I hope it kind of answers the questions people are asking. The 200, yeah, if you're only going to use it just to make your coffee, you know, run something for the microwave for 5 or 10 minutes, they're both 54 amps. The basic difference is one is much easier to add to it. It has a little bit more kick, I guess, overloading it a little bit if you have something that's a high current starting. If that's all you need it for, Either one will work. And have a couple of batteries for emergency. There you go. Have a nice day. Take care and be appreciated. Thumbs up or subscribe or both. Thanks again. If you haven't done so, it would be appreciated. Please subscribe. And thank you for watching. Have a nice day.